March 15th, 2019. Basel, Switzerland. Kristina Novak was 22 years old when she boarded the train that would carry her from Vienna to her new life in Switzerland. She had saved for 6 months to afford the journey. In her backpack, she carried 2 changes of clothes, her passport, and a contract promising room, board, and 800 Swiss francs per month in exchange for 25 hours of childcare per week. She never imagined those would be the last possessions anyone would find intact. Kristina came from a small town outside Vienna where opportunities were limited and her family struggled. Her father had been laid off from the factory. Her younger sister needed money for university. When Kristina saw the au pair posting online, it seemed like an answer to everything. The family looked perfect in their photographs. Professional parents, 2 young children, a spacious home in one of Switzerland's wealthiest cantons. She was so excited, her mother, Elena Novak, would later recall. She video called me from the train station, showing me the Swiss mountains through the window. She said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. The family who hired Kristina operated through an unregistered au pair matching website. No agency, no background checks, no oversight. Just an online listing and a series of warm, persuasive emails from a woman who called herself Anna Weber. Kristina arrived at Basel SBB station on a cold evening in mid-March. Anna Weber was waiting at the platform. She was 46 years old, blonde, dressed in expensive casual clothes that suggested wealth without ostentation. Her smile was practiced, professional. "You must be exhausted," Anna said, taking one of Kristina's bags. "The children are so excited to meet you." What Kristina didn't know was that she was the 4th au pair the Weber family had hired in 18 months. The previous 3 had all left within weeks. One had filed a complaint with local authorities about working conditions before returning to Poland. That complaint had been lost in bureaucratic processing. No one had followed up. The Weber home sat on 2 hectares of land outside Basel, surrounded by forest. The nearest neighbor was half a kilometer away. The house itself was modern and expensive, all glass and steel and carefully landscaped gardens. Anna's husband, Thomas Weber, was a senior executive at a pharmaceutical company. He was 51, tall, with the kind of authority that came from decades of people following his orders without question. Their children, Max and Sophie, were 7 and 5. They seemed normal enough that first evening. Quiet, well-behaved, a little too subdued perhaps. But Kristina attributed that to shyness. "Your room is in the basement," Anna said, leading Kristina down narrow stairs. "It's private. You'll have your own bathroom." The room was small, windowless. The single bed took up most of the space. A bare bulb hung from the ceiling. The walls were concrete, painted, white but showing cracks and water stains. It smelled of mildew. "We'll get you a lamp," Anna said quickly, seeing Kristina's expression. "And some decorations. Make it homey." The lamp never materialized. That first night, lying on the thin mattress in the basement, Kristina sent a message to her mother. "Everything is fine. The family seems nice. The children are sweet." She included a smiling emoji. She didn't mention the room. She didn't want her mother to worry. The contract Kristina had signed specified 25 hours of childcare per week. Light housekeeping, weekends free. The reality revealed itself within days. Anna woke her at 6 each morning by pounding on the basement door. Breakfast had to be prepared. The children needed to be dressed, fed, and ready for school by 7:30. After school, there were activities, piano lessons, swimming, homework supervision, dinner preparation, baths, bedtime routines. The day ended around 9 at night. "This is temporary," Anna told her after the first week, when Kristina gently mentioned the hours. "Just until we get into a rhythm. You understand?" Kristina understood she needed the money. She understood she had nowhere else to go. The isolation happened gradually. First, Anna asked for Kristina's phone for safekeeping during work hours. "So you're not distracted with the children," she explained. The phone stayed locked in Anna's office. Kristina got it back at night in the basement, where there was no cell signal and the Wi-Fi password changed weekly. "There's internet in the kitchen," Anna said when Kristina asked. "You can use it on your breaks." But the breaks rarely came, and when they did, Anna was always there, watching, making comments about how long Kristina spent online, asking who she was talking to. Thomas Weber spoke little to Kristina directly. He communicated through Anna or through brief, pointed observations. The children's shirts weren't ironed properly. Dinner was late again. The house isn't clean enough for what we're paying. What they were paying was being reduced monthly. Deductions for broken dishes Kristina never broke. Charges for extra food she supposedly consumed. By the end of the first month, her 800 francs had been reduced to 400. By the end of the second month, to 200. "You're lucky to have this position," Anna told her. "Do you know how many girls would want this opportunity?" Kristina's friend from Vienna, Sarah Hoffman, tried calling repeatedly. When she finally got through one evening in late April, she knew immediately something was wrong. Kristina sounded different, Sarah recalled. Quiet. She kept saying everything was fine, but I could hear it in her voice. Fear. She said she couldn't talk long because the family was waiting for her. Sarah asked if Kristina wanted her to contact authorities. Kristina said no. She said she just needed to complete 3 months to get a reference letter. Then she'd find something better. She never got that chance. By early May, the abuse had become overt. Anna screamed at Kristina for minor infractions. Kristina wasn't allowed to eat with the family anymore. Her meals were leftovers, eaten alone in the basement. Thomas had begun making comments about her appearance, degrading remarks disguised as observations. The children had stopped talking to her. When Kristina tried to engage them, they looked to their mother for permission. Anna had trained them well. "Don't bother Kristina," Anna would say. "She has work to do." On May 8th, Kristina managed to send a message to her mother from a public computer at the Basel train station during a rare supervised trip into town. She wrote, "Things are difficult here. I want to come home. But I need money for the train ticket. Can you send 200 euros? Elena Novak couldn't send the money. The family didn't have it. She wrote back, "Can you just leave? Walk to the police?" Kristina never responded to that message. Elena Novak would read it 10,000 times over the following months, wondering what would have happened if she'd found the money somehow. If she'd insisted Kristina leave immediately. If she'd called Swiss authorities herself. What she didn't know was that on that same day, May 8th, Thomas Weber had made a decision. Kristina had become a problem. She was asking too many questions about her pay. She'd been seen by neighbors during a brief moment in the garden. She'd mentioned wanting to contact the au pair agency that supposedly placed her, not knowing no such agency existed. She had become a liability. Dr. Michael Fisher, a forensic psychologist who would later analyze the case, explained the dynamic clearly. These situations escalate through predictable stages: isolation, degradation, complete control. When the victim begins to resist or threatens exposure, the perpetrators face a choice: let them go and risk consequences, or eliminate the threat entirely. The Weber family had already made that choice once before. Police would later discover that claim during the investigation. The previous complaint from the Polish au pair hadn't been lost in bureaucracy. It had been intercepted. Thomas Weber had connections in the local administration. The complaint had disappeared. But that girl had been lucky. She'd left before things went too far. Kristina wasn't going to be given that option. May 10, 2019, started as a normal day in the Weber household. Normal, that is, for what the situation had become. Kristina woke to Anna pounding on the door. She prepared breakfast. She got the children ready for school. Thomas left for work early. Anna had errands to run. "Stay here," Anna instructed. "Clean the house. I'll be back this afternoon." But Anna didn't leave. She waited upstairs while Kristina worked in the kitchen. She was making calls. Quiet conversations Kristina couldn't quite hear. When Thomas returned home at 11, supposedly from the office, Kristina felt something shift. The air in the house felt different. Charged. Dangerous. "Kristina," Anna called from the living room. "We need to discuss your employment." Kristina walked into the room. Thomas was standing by the fireplace. Anna sat on the white leather sofa. Neither was smiling. On the coffee table between them was a folder. Kristina's passport was visible on top. "We've decided to terminate your contract," Anna said. Her voice was flat, businesslike. "Immediately." Kristina felt relief flood through her. "Okay," she said. "Can I have my passport? I'll arrange transportation back to Vienna." "It's not that simple," Thomas said. "You owe us money." The amount they claimed was staggering. Nearly 8,000 Swiss francs for damaged property, stolen food, unauthorized phone usage. Items they'd invented, charges they'd fabricated, all documented in the folder with falsified receipts and timestamps. "I don't have that kind of money," Kristina said. Her hands were shaking. "Then you'll need to work it off," Anna replied. "Or we report you to immigration authorities for theft and breach of contract. You'll be arrested, deported. You'll never work in Europe again." Kristina looked at her passport on the table. She looked at the door. She looked at Thomas's expression and Anna's cold smile. And she understood finally that she was in serious danger. What happened next would be reconstructed through forensic evidence, testimony from the eventual investigation, and the Weber family's own confused, contradictory statements to police. Kristina tried to leave. She reached for her passport. Thomas moved to block the door. Anna grabbed Kristina's arm. Kristina pulled away. She was young, strong from months of constant physical labor. She broke Anna's grip and ran for the front entrance. Thomas caught her in the hallway. What began as restraint became violence. Anna later claimed it was an accident, that Kristina slipped, fell, hit her head on the marble floor. The forensic evidence told a different story. The autopsy would reveal multiple impact injuries, defensive wounds on Kristina's arms, bruising around her throat consistent with strangulation. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Kristina Novak died in the hallway of the Weber home on May 10, 2019, sometime around noon. She was 22 years old. She'd been in Switzerland for less than 2 months. The Weber family's response to having a dead woman in their house was methodical, practiced. They wrapped her body in plastic sheeting from Thomas's workshop. They kept her in the basement cold storage room overnight while they made arrangements. Anna called the children's school and canceled afternoon pickup. She sent messages to friends from Kristina's phone saying she decided to travel for a few days. The next morning, before sunrise, Thomas and Anna carried Kristina's body to the far corner of their property. Thomas had already dug the grave. 2 meters deep, concealed by a small grove of trees where the garden met the forest. They buried her still wrapped in plastic, along with her backpack and the few possessions she'd brought from Vienna. Then they planted a row of decorative shrubs over the gravesite. New landscaping, perfectly normal for a wealthy family improving their property. When investigators later asked Anna why they didn't panic, why they didn't call an ambulance or police, she gave an answer that chilled everyone in the courtroom. "We'd already made the decision," she said. "There was no point in changing our minds." For 3 weeks, Kristina Novak was officially a missing person. Her mother filed reports with Austrian police. She called the Swiss authorities. She contacted the online platform where Kristina had found the job posting, only to discover the listing had been deleted and the account abandoned. The platform had no verification system, no real names, no paper trail. The Weber family told anyone who asked that Kristina had quit suddenly and left. They showed the fake messages from her phone. They expressed confusion about why she disappeared. They seemed like concerned employers worried about a troubled young woman. The investigation might never have happened if not for a persistent postal worker named Hans Mueller. He delivered packages to the Weber residence regularly for years. He'd seen 3 previous au pairs come and go rapidly. When Kristina suddenly vanished and another young woman appeared within days, he found it troubling. Mueller mentioned it to a friend who worked in local law enforcement. The friend, Officer Rita Bachmann, had a good memory. She recalled the Polish au pair's complaint from the previous year, the one that had supposedly been resolved. She started asking questions. On June 1st, 2019, police arrived at the Weber home with questions about Kristina Novak's whereabouts. Thomas and Anna maintained their story. She'd quit. She'd left. They had no idea where she went. They'd tried to help. But Officer Bachmann noticed something. The basement room where Kristina had supposedly lived had been completely emptied. Scrubbed clean, fresh paint on the walls. For a room that had been occupied just weeks ago, it looked suspiciously spotless. "Show me your garden," Bachmann said. Something in Anna Weber's expression changed. A flicker, brief but unmistakable. The forensic team arrived that afternoon with ground-penetrating radar. They found the disturbance within an hour. The freshly turned earth, the decorative shrubs that hadn't taken root yet, the plastic sheeting 2 meters down. They found Kristina Novak buried in the garden where she'd worked, cared for children, and dreamed of saving enough money to help her family back home. Thomas and Anna Weber were arrested at the scene. Their children were taken into protective custody. The house was sealed as a crime scene. Forensic teams would spend weeks documenting evidence of systematic abuse, financial exploitation, and finally, murder. The trial lasted 4 months. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Kristina's DNA throughout the house, her blood in the hallway, digital records showing the fake deductions from her salary, testimony from the previous au pairs about similar patterns of abuse. Expert witnesses explained the psychology of domestic servitude and how it escalates to violence. The Weber family's defense crumbled quickly. They tried to claim accident, self-defense, mental instability. Nothing explained the methodical burial, the fake messages, the rapid cover-up, the attempt to hire another au pair within weeks. Dr. Sarah Klein, testifying for the prosecution, was direct in her assessment. These weren't people who panicked and made a terrible mistake. These were predators who created a system to exploit vulnerable young women. When one victim threatened that system, they eliminated her. The speed of their response, the thoroughness of the cover-up, the immediate return to seeking another victim, all of this suggests this was within their capacity for planning. They knew exactly what they were doing. On February 14, 2020, Thomas Weber was convicted of murder, unlawful imprisonment, human trafficking, and concealment of a crime. He received 22 years in prison. Anna Weber was convicted as an accessory to murder, unlawful imprisonment, and human trafficking. She received 17 years. The children, Max and Sophie, were placed with Anna's sister in Germany. A sister who claimed she'd had no idea what was happening in that house. Psychologists would work with them for years to undo the damage of being raised by parents who murdered their employee and buried her in the garden. Elena Novak brought her daughter's body home to Austria. Kristina was buried in the small-town cemetery where she'd grown up. Her grave marker reads, "Beloved daughter and sister." She only wanted to help. Several hundred people attended the funeral, many of them young au pairs who saw in Kristina's fate the nightmare that haunts everyone who takes a job far from home with strangers. The online platform where Kristina found the listing was investigated but never charged. They implemented new verification requirements, but enforcement remained minimal. Thousands of young women still find au pair positions through unregulated websites. The Swiss government did pass new legislation requiring registration and oversight for all au pair placements. Whether this will prevent another tragedy remains to be seen. Officer Rita Bachmann received a commendation for her persistence in pursuing the case. "I think about all the signals we missed," she said months after the trial. The previous complaints, the rapid turnover of workers, the isolation of the property, all the warning signs were there. We just weren't looking closely enough. Hans Mueller, the postal worker whose concern sparked the investigation, visits Kristina's memorial plaque in Basel's main square. The plaque was installed by a coalition of workers' rights groups. It reads, "In memory of Kristina Novak and all workers who die far from home. Your lives matter. Your deaths will not be forgotten." Kristina's younger sister Maria, now 20, is studying law at the University of Vienna. She's specializing in labor rights and human trafficking. She carries a photograph of Kristina in her wallet, taken the day before Kristina left for Switzerland. In it, Kristina is smiling, excited, full of hope for the adventure ahead. "I'm doing this for her," Maria said recently. "So no other family has to search for their daughter in a stranger's garden. So no other girl thinks she has to accept abuse because she needs money. Kristina deserved better. They all deserve better." The Weber property was eventually sold at auction. The new owners tore down the house and completely redesigned the grounds. But locals still drive past and point out the location where Kristina was found. The trees where she was buried still stand. They've become an unofficial memorial where people leave flowers and candles. The case exposed systematic failures in how European countries manage au pair programs. Advocacy groups used Kristina's story to push for reforms across multiple nations. Some progress has been made. Registration requirements, mandatory background checks, regular welfare visits. But enforcement remains inconsistent. The au pair industry continues largely unregulated in much of Europe. Experts estimate thousands of au pairs experience abuse annually. Most never report it. Those who do often face barriers of language, distance from support systems, and fear of deportation. Kristina's case became a rallying point for change precisely because it couldn't be hidden. The body in the garden forced everyone to acknowledge what many had long suspected. The final word belongs to Elena Novak, speaking at a workers' rights conference 6 months after the trial. "My daughter went to Switzerland to build a better future. She wanted to help her family. She wanted to see the world. She was 22 years old and full of dreams. Instead, she met people who saw her as disposable, property, a problem to be eliminated. I tell Kristina's story so that maybe, somehow, her death might protect another young woman. That's all I can do now. That's all any of us can do. Tell the truth. Demand justice. Remember their names. Kristina Novak was 22 when she was buried in a garden in Switzerland. Her case remains a stark reminder that the most dangerous place for many workers isn't on a construction site or in a factory, but in a home where no one is watching and no one will hear you scream.